There is a story circulating right now that fundamentally changes everything we thought we knew about the Roloff family dynamic. I want to talk about the alleged incident where Jeremy Roloff walked into his father's office and dropped a stack of papers on the desk. This was not a loud argument or a screaming match for the reality television cameras. According to the claims that have been making the rounds, it was a quiet presentation of a financial dossier. The narrative suggests that this binder contained proof that Matt Roloff's entire relationship with Caryn Chandler was built on a multi-million-dollar financial con. My read on this situation is that if these allegations hold any water, we are looking at the complete collapse of an empire built on trust, and Matt might have been entirely outplayed by the one person he thought he had total control over. To understand how a situation like this could even develop, we have to look back at how Roloff Farms operates and how Caryn integrated herself into the business. For years, viewers watched Matt Roloff act as the undisputed architect of his family's land. He prides himself on being a visionary. He built the attractions, he managed the expansion, and he constantly positioned himself as the smartest businessman in the room. When his marriage to Amy dissolved, Caryn stepped into a uniquely powerful position. She was not just a new romantic partner who came around for family dinners, she was the farm manager. She knew the operational logistics, she handled the payroll, and she understood the massive influx of revenue that comes in during pumpkin season. Pumpkin season on Roloff Farms is a massive logistical undertaking. You have thousands of visitors, temporary staff, vendor contracts, merchandise sales, and significant cash flow. Managing that kind of seasonal business requires intimate knowledge of financial books. When Caryn transitioned from employee to girlfriend, the natural boundary between personal trust and business oversight dissolved. Matt trusted her completely. I think it is very easy to see how a business owner, getting older and dealing with physical limitations, would happily hand over the administrative burden to a partner he believed had his best interest at heart. The claims regarding this dossier suggest that Caryn used this unchecked access to orchestrate a highly sophisticated fake charity scam. The alleged mechanism is actually quite common in cases of corporate fraud. The story goes that Matt believed they were cleverly writing off farm expenses as charitable donations. Roloff Farms has historically engaged with the public, hosted events, and occasionally supported causes. The line between a business promotion and a charitable event can sometimes get blurry in the eyes of an aggressive accountant. According to the allegations, Caryn weaponized this gray area. The rumor claims that she engineered a system where massive operational costs and farm improvements were categorized as charitable write-offs. This would theoretically reduce the farm's taxable income to near zero. Matt allegedly thought this was just incredibly shrewd business management. He likes finding loopholes. He likes feeling like he is beating the system. The devastating part of the rumor is the second half of the scam. While the taxable income was being aggressively reduced on paper, the actual liquid cash saved from these write-offs was allegedly being siphoned out of the farm's accounts and redirected into private accounts controlled by Caryn. If you think about the mechanics of this, it requires a lot of moving parts. You would need to inflate invoices, create dummy events, or funnel money through third-party vendors that eventually route back to a private trust. I do not have access to Matt Roloff's bank statements, so I am analyzing the plausibility of the claims being made. From a purely structural standpoint, a farm manager with total control over the books and a romantic hold over the owner could absolutely execute this kind of financial diversion. Matt was likely looking at top-line revenue and the physical improvements on his property, while paying very little attention to the specific routing numbers on the outgoing wire transfers. This is where Jeremy's involvement becomes incredibly interesting. Jeremy stepped back from the primary drama of the television show years ago. While Zach had the very loud, very public falling out with Matt over the purchase price of the north side of the farm, Jeremy has maintained a slightly more distant profile. However, Jeremy grew up on that land. He knows the baseline numbers. He knows what a typical pumpkin season should net, and he knows how much the property costs to maintain. The narrative states that Jeremy started noticing discrepancies and decided to look closer. According to the claims, Jeremy bypassed the family accountants entirely and hired his own independent financial analyst. This is a crucial detail. When a family business uses the same accounting firm for a decade, those accountants often become loyal to the person signing their checks, or they simply get lazy. An independent analyst coming in to look at the ledgers would have no loyalty to Matt, no loyalty to Caryn, and no preconceived notions about how the farm is supposed to operate. They would just look at the raw data. The twisting point of this entire story is the legal analysis section of the alleged dossier. The claim suggests that the analyst did not just find missing money. They found proof that every single dollar Matt wrote off under this charity structure was a direct violation of IRS tax codes. There is a massive difference between tax avoidance, which is using legal loopholes to lower your tax burden, and tax evasion, which is a federal crime. If the allegations are accurate, Caryn did not just steal money from Matt. She actively exposed him to catastrophic legal and financial ruin. The IRS does not look kindly on fake charity deductions. If an audit were triggered by these alleged practices, the penalties would not just be a slap on the wrist. Matt would be liable for years of back taxes, exorbitant interest, and massive fraud penalties. The federal government could easily place liens on the farm itself. The terrifying reality presented in this rumor is that Caryn essentially built a financial time bomb under Roloff Farms. She engineered the entire process, but Matt's name is on the deed and Matt's signature is on the tax returns. He holds the ultimate liability. I want to talk about the alleged climax of this situation, which is the moment Matt had to sit in his office and look at the actual numbers Jeremy placed in front of him. Try to put yourself in Matt's mindset. For the last several years, he has alienated huge portions of his family. He went through a bitter public divorce. He had a severe breakdown in relations with Zach and Tori. He essentially told his own children that they were not ready or capable of running the farm he built. Through all of that isolation, his one constant defense was Caryn. He constantly portrayed her as his peace, his supportive partner, and the one person who truly understood his vision. The psychological weight of looking at a stack of papers that systematically disproves that entire reality is heavy. The claim suggests that Matt slumped back in his chair as the realization hit him. The numbers screamed a truth he could not argue his way out of. Every supportive gesture, every time she offered to take the bookkeeping off his plate, every kind word might have just been a performance. If the dossier is accurate, she did not love him. She saw his farm as a sprawling, poorly audited resource to plunder. It is one thing to lose money in a bad business deal. Matt has had business ventures fail before. It is an entirely different kind of trauma to realize that your primary emotional support system was actually a parasite feeding on your legacy. Matt prides himself on control. He dictates how the farm looks, who gets to live on it, and what price he will accept for it. To realize that he was essentially the mark in a long con requires a level of humility that Matt has rarely ever shown publicly. I think we need to seriously examine the counterarguments here, because accepting this rumor at face value requires believing that Caryn Chandler is a criminal mastermind. What is the most charitable interpretation of this entire situation? What are the people who disagree with this narrative saying? The strongest counterargument is that the Roloff children have a very obvious vested interest in painting Caryn as a villain. None of the kids seemed particularly thrilled about her transition from employee to stepmother figure. It is entirely possible that Jeremy hired a consultant who took a highly aggressive, hostile look at standard accounting practices. Many family businesses operate in a messy gray area regarding expenses. They write off meals, travel, and property improvements in ways that might make a corporate auditor wince, but usually just result in a routine adjustment if caught. Perhaps Matt knew exactly what he was doing with his taxes. He has always been a very frugal, deeply involved owner. The idea that millions of dollars could be siphoned out of his accounts without him noticing seems difficult to believe. The private accounts mentioned in the rumors might just be Caryn's legitimate salary, bonuses, and retirement funds that Matt legally authorized her to take as compensation for managing the farm. In this interpretation, the dossier is not proof of a con. It is just a weaponized audit created by a son who is angry about his inheritance being spent. There is also the question of legal risk. If Caryn actually engineered a multi-million-dollar fake charity scam, she is risking federal prison. People who already enjoy a comfortable reality television lifestyle rarely risk federal indictment just to skim extra money off the top of a pumpkin patch. The risk simply does not match the reward unless she was incredibly desperate or incredibly arrogant. We have to acknowledge that without seeing the physical documents, it is entirely possible that this entire story is an exaggerated game of telephone started by an ordinary family dispute over bookkeeping. I honestly find the counterargument compelling, but it does not fully erase the persistent whispers about the financial state of the farm. Even if we strip away the most extreme allegations of federal tax fraud and secret private accounts, the core issue remains a problem of trust and control. If Caryn had total control over the finances, and if she made decisions that benefited her personal wealth at the expense of the farm's long-term stability, the feeling of betrayal is still valid. You have to consider the environment that reality television creates. When a family is paid to air their conflicts, the line between genuine emotion and produced drama disappears. Matt has spent years building a narrative for the cameras where he is the wise patriarch making tough decisions. If this dossier exists in any form, it shatters that image. It means the patriarch was asleep at the wheel. It means the empire was crumbling while he was busy filming arguments about tractor sales and retaining walls. Let us look at Jeremy's position in all of this. The rumor claims that after laying out the evidence, the silence in the office was deafening. Jeremy finally looked at his father and asked, "What do we do now?" That question is the absolute core of this entire ordeal. It is not just a question about how to fix the accounting. It is a question about how you navigate a crisis that you cannot publicly admit is happening. If Matt turns Caryn in or sues her to recover the funds, he has to publicly admit that he was conned. He has to admit to his ex-wife and his children that they were right to be suspicious of her. Furthermore, he opens himself up to that exact IRS scrutiny we talked about earlier. By exposing her, he exposes his own signature on those fraudulent tax returns. He would be inviting federal auditors to tear his life's work apart. On the other hand, if he chooses to cover it up, he remains legally vulnerable forever. He would have to slowly try to untangle the financial mess without tipping off the authorities, all while living with the knowledge that his partner betrayed him. He would be trapped in a prison of his own making, bound to Caryn not by love, but by mutually assured destruction. This situation highlights a fascinating psychological dynamic that happens to very successful, very stubborn people. Matt Roloff spent his entire adult life building a fortress. He fought the local county over zoning permits. He fought his ex-wife over the division of assets. He fought his sons over the succession plan. He built his walls incredibly high to protect his kingdom from everyone he viewed as a threat. But he left the back door completely unlocked for the person who flattered his ego and offered to handle the paperwork. I find it incredibly sad, regardless of the exact dollar amount involved. You watch a family build something unique over decades, only to see it potentially dismantled from the inside. We have watched these people navigate marriages, births, and major life transitions. For it all to culminate in a quiet meeting over a binder of financial discrepancies feels like a very grim reality check. As we look at the future of Roloff Farms, the physical land is only half the story. The legacy of trust within the family is the real asset, and that asset appears completely bankrupt. I am curious to see how the family navigates the public relations aspect of this going forward. You cannot hide major financial restructuring forever, and if the IRS ever does come knocking, the public records will eventually tell the full story. Matt wanted to build an empire that would outlast him, but he might end up leaving behind nothing more than a cautionary tale about the cost of blind trust.